Good morning. This is going to be a really quick video on how I make homemade gravy. Now, this is like my second step. For others, this is my first step. I always get a pot of hot boiling water to add once I make that step, but put some water on. Now, if you are not a fan of onions, you can do away with them, but your gravy ain't going to be what gravy's supposed to be. So we're going to cook these until they start browning some. Not quite too brown, but brown. Now, I don't know if you can see that, but they starting to brown. Some a little bit browner than others, but that's good enough for me. I like a lot of onions, so I'm going to add more onions once the gravy gets formed. Next up to start the show is the flour. Now, I'm going to add more flour because I want a lot of gravy because I got a lot of liver. We're having liver and onions and gravy and rice and cabbage today. But you see that? Most of the flour that I had in here is dissolved, so I'm going to add more. So a real good tip is, once you get your flour and oil and onions mixed up, if you can still see oil floating at the top, that means you're going to have greasy gravy. Nobody wants greasy gravy. Make sure you add enough flour to keep your gravy from being greasy. Right now it doesn't look that way, but you know I'm going to check it in a second to see. Also, so now that you got that well mixed up, that doesn't mean you just automatically add your water in. No, I like to let this, what we call a roux, cook down some. It'll thicken up, it'll cook out some of that grease, let it cook up and brown up more. And of course I'm going to add more onions. Alright, so this is not as thick as I would like it to be, or as brown as I would like it to be. But I don't care. Once I add the liver to it, the gravy's going to turn brown anyway. It's thick enough, but as you can see, you don't see any grease floating. It's ready for the hot boiling water. And I use the hot boiling water simply because it's like it fast tracks the gravy somewhat. The only thing is you have to be careful. Pour a little bit and stir. Pour a little bit and stir. So that's what I got poured for now. Now I got to stir. It will look lumpy to begin with, but baby, once it's finished, it won't look that way. So you see how lumpy it looks? It won't stay that way. I got my seasoning I'm going to mix up in it. You season yours according to what you want. This is garlic pepper, a little bit of soul seasoning, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. See how lumpy it looks for right now? That's only temporary. Don't let it bother you. So this is what's going to help get rid of some of those lumps. Y'all forgive me, somebody is texting me in the middle of this. But this is going to help get rid of some of those lumps if you pay attention. Look at that. But as it cooks down, it's going to also get rid of them. But you see those onions enough, all nice and brown, most of them. I'm going to add the liver to it in just a minute. I'm still actually frying some of it. So, but anyway. So right now, without being done whatsoever, you see the liver is down in there. I still got a couple more pieces of liver to put in there. And you can see a few little lumps. But again, as this liver cooks, because I let my liver cook, simmer in gravy for at least a couple of hours. And I do that to keep it, to make it very, very, very tender. And that helps the gravy get a little bit better too. It soaks in the meat flavors, all of that just come in together. And it works really, really well. So just stay tuned. Hopefully I don't forget to show you the end result. Now this is just a few moments later. I don't know if you could tell, but it's already starting to thicken. I added some onions and mushrooms to that liver and gravy. I mean, mushrooms and bell pepper. I already had onion. I'm going to add a little bit more onion a little later. Because it seems like to me, as long as the onions cook down, some of them completely disappear. This was a whole onion and a half, and already I don't see some of them, but I'm going to add more. Now, just to give you a little bit of information, this is a copper pot. In a copper pot, you want to turn it down as low as possible if you're going to simmer something. If you can look at the bubbles in my gravy, you can tell that it's thick. If it was thin, the bubbles wouldn't look so thick as they are. But you can tell that they're thick. So I'm going to add the rest of the liver and turn it down as low as possible. Copper pots tend to run at a higher heat. Stuff tends to stick. I don't want my meat to stick to the bottom. I just don't. This is with all of the meat in, and the final step is this. This is going to sound crazy to some, but I'm going to put a lid on it. But before I put a lid on it, I always make sure I have a little extra water in the lid. I just do. I don't know why, especially when I got something like liver cooking, because it tends to stick if I'm not careful with this copper pot. But this is like my favorite pot to make my gravy in. It's a skillet, but it's deep enough. So I just do that. And we're going to let it go like this for at least 2 hours, checking it and stirring it periodically to make sure nothing is sticking. And just to show you what's going on my cutting board, that is onion, bell pepper, and a jalapeno. That is strictly for this cabbage. Jalapeno sounds harsh, I promise you. It just gives the cabbage a nice little kick. I don't add water at all to my cabbage. I'm probably not going to show y'all that, but I don't add water at all. I simply fry bacon, pull the bacon out, saute my vegetables like these, add the cabbage right to it, in waves, season it as I go, add the bacon at the very end. I do not put a lid on it until I'm completely done with the cabbage. I like it on the crispy side, you know, not crispy like crunch, 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 but I like a little chew to my cabbage, so I do not add water to it whatsoever. Cabbage makes its own water if you cover it. That's why I kind of added it at the end. Okay, so remember I told y'all I was coming back with the end result. Hold on, let me show y'all this cabbage real quick. I don't add no water to that thing. I cook it just like that. Now the best part of the meal. And forgive the little seasoning that you see on top. I just added a little extra. Forgive the noise in the background. I know that it is 12:41 my time p.m., but I have to have me a little coffee. There are no lumps or bumps in this gravy anymore. No lumps or bumps. Look. Look at that. I told y'all, them little lumps that you see like that, they cook right on out because it wasn't lumpy to start with. Yeah. Look at that gravy. Ooh, child.